So, okay, so as I said, we'll eventually get to working on, let me switch here. We'll eventually get to doing some stuff with color. And I'll probably have to, in order to be able to explain things well, I might have to start all the way back from the basics and kind of rush through that really quick. But it's always a good review to hear it over and over and over again. And just really to understand how the colors relate to each other. Because that's really, I suppose, if you want to understand how to work with the color and what color says and does, then you sort of have to understand that part. What is the relationship to each other? So, but before we get that, and I suppose the way I will probably approach it in talking about color is, as I said, how do we use color as a way of expressing and identifying and thinking about what different things do colors say and sing. I'll even use that word. What music do they sing depending on who they're with, who they're being mixed with, who they're standing next to. And if you sort of imagine in your mind, just like a choir, you know, the director of a choir is going to move the people around and they're going to place them in particular places on the stage because it makes a difference in how it sounds, because everyone sings differently. You know, they're all singing the same song, but they all, because of the range of tone in their voice and all of that, and how it's all, in order to get it to harmonize together, they have to arrange that. And so you can really think about color in that same sort of way of how you arrange it, how you either, you know, mixing it together, who they're standing beside each other on your canvas is going to produce a different song. And even it's going to produce a different mood with the song. And that's I suppose that's really a big part of it too, is I suppose that I don't know a whole lot about music, but I imagine that's also what they're doing with music. And it's, or, you know, or you could look at a musician, how he puts the notes together. He's always using the same notes, but he thinks about which, you know, when he plays different notes at the exact same time, you know, on a piano, I'm imagining a piano, certain notes, so that matters. That totally matters which notes are played together. And that's like which colors are mixed together. And then what notes come right after that. You know, you all know if you, and it's weird, like you hit one note, it matters which note follows that. And all of that. So that's the same way with mixing color and placing colors beside each other on your canvas. Even in music, if we use music again, it matters how long you play the note. You know, do you hold it? Is it drawn out, or is it, you know, they call it the staccato, the thing, you know, the very short. So you think about the same thing with color paint. It matters how broad your that color is. Is it done in short points, or is it done in a big broad stroke? Okay, all of that. So you know, you can imagine how important it is. And then with, I suppose, once again, if we go back to music, it totally makes a difference with the volume. How loud and how soft is all going to create a different sort of expression of the song and create a different mood, and it's going to leave the listener in a completely different sort of place, right? And so again, same thing with your painting, how dark and how light. You know, you can have red, but it's going to totally be different how dark and how light it is, and where it changes, and all those sort of things. So it's, yeah, you know, it's, put it this way, you can never stop learning about color and how to work with it. And because it is so big and broad and vast, also understand you don't get it just like that, and it doesn't come, it only comes with doing it and practicing it and playing with it and that sort of thing. So Okay, so all that being said is now that I've said all that, I'm wondering if I should get into the other stuff. I think I might not. I was going to talk about identity and the purpose of art being all about identifying the kingdom, but I don't want to get into too heavy things. But I'll keep it real short. But I'm just going to share this. So I'm going to share the screen here with you guys. And this is not my own. Hopefully you guys can see this. This comes from a friend of mine from a teaching he was doing, and Jesus' main teaching. And so the numbers, so it says on the side, so these are different topics that Jesus taught on. Probably not all, there's other topics, but these are the main topics he spoke on, I imagine. And these are sort of the real obvious ones in the Bible. And then on the right side, the numbers is how many times he mentioned these things. And the one that fascinates me is salvation, because we always make such a big deal of that. And it's only, he only brought it up twice. Anyway, so, because I guess the way I look at it is and that really is my hope, is that we're here learning about what does it mean to be a kingdom artist, and how do we go about being kingdom artists. I like that term much better than a Christian artist or Christian art, simply because when we think Christian art, most people's imagination just simply goes to, Bible images, or stuff like that, or, stick a cross in the corner. But kingdom is much bigger than that, because the kingdom's everywhere, You could paint, I always think, you could paint or draw your breakfast or something about breakfast, simply a meal, and you can express the kingdom through that. It's not obvious how, but I truly believe you can. And it's not always the big heavy thing. It's not always the big heavy things like this. What does our breakfast look like when it's part of the kingdom? There's a question for you. But anyways, the kingdom is, look at the difference. His main topic is the kingdom of God 117 times. That's just huge compared to these. The biggest one is faith. Obviously there's other ones because hope's not in here, but the kingdom. So that's why I think what we are doing and what we're called to do is to identify the kingdom and point it out, because we are called to be witnesses, and a witness identifies things, right? And they point it out by how it looks. And I suppose that's part of what I was saying, is why art again, in case any of you guys are, I'm sure you deal with this. I know I certainly do as an artist, is wondering about what's the point of this? Especially when we look at all the crazy stuff going on in the world. What's the point of art? With war and, orphans all around the world, poverty and everything. And I'm painting pictures, I'm drawing pictures, like, what's the point? And it's because I think we need to identify the kingdom in all of those places. And if you look at how we identify things, and identity is done through images, with witnesses and all that sort of stuff. They have to see the person in a lineup and identify who that person is, or your own identity is done through a photo of yourself. But I was talking with Becky this morning about it. With art, I'd say what we're doing in the kingdom is identifying those things which are invisible. Okay. And that's why color is so important. So, okay, so there's the connection. I'll use that as my segue into color. Because for instance, if we are going to identify joy or peace or hope or something like that, and then we decide to do so with a flower, for example, the flower is going to be our subject matter. And through this flower, we want to identify or express joy or hope or peace or something like that through this flower. In the past couple of courses, I've talked about how we arrange it matters. Okay, like how do we get a viewer to look at that and not say, "Oh, that's a painting of a flower." How do we, or well, they might say that, but how do we get them beyond that to stay there? I guess that's the point, is how do we get our viewer to not look at our painting and say, "Oh, that's a pretty flower," and then keep on walking and move on? How do we get them to stop and say, "That's a flower," but they're drawn to stay with the flower, and by staying there, they begin to realize there's more than just a flower, and through that, they begin to receive or feel, or it grows in them, joy, and what joy truly is, and what peace truly is, not in an intellectual, academic understanding, but in an experiential understanding. That's why I always say art, as artists, we invite the viewer to experience, so that's the way to say it. How do we get them to experience joy by looking at our painting? Okay. And so one of the ways is color, is working with color. So we're gonna sort of look at that, how we, once again, what does color say? What does color say? What does color sound like? Yeah, hopefully that will make sense to you guys. You understand as I can't help but speak kind of poetically about it. I don't know any other way to really describe it. So, but let's go for it here. So I'm just going to work with colored pencils on this page. And I really think that in art, we find there are, I think so, this is something that has come to me, I find there are, try to think of things in two possible ways, either as circular or as a spectrum, okay? As opposed to putting things into categories and into boxes. And I think when I was first teaching, I would teach like this. There is an element of having to separate and categorize, and because it's so complex, it's the only way we can begin to start understanding things. But we have to understand, when we put something into a box, that edge is not really there. It's a bit blurry and everything runs into each other. So that's what sort of came to me, is if I try to think of something as it's either on a spectrum. So for instance, dark and light, like value, dark to light is on a spectrum. It doesn't stop, one place or the other. Color, and then what was another example? A contrast, like the principle of contrast, once again, is on a spectrum. The rhythm. Oh, balance, that's a good, okay, balance. You can't just, stick the idea of balance into categories and say this is right and this is wrong, and this is how you do it, and don't do this, and these are the safe ways to do it, and these are the wrong ways. It just doesn't work that way. Balance is on a spectrum. It's you can balance it to be, very static and calm, or you can create tension, making it uncomfortable and uneasy and that sort of thing. Okay. So anyway, that's me getting carried away with all of this stuff. Color is, we sort of have to look at color in a circle. Okay. Yeah. And I don't know if there's anything else besides color. But anyway. Okay. I get caught up in these things. Did you guys know that? Do you guys recognize this symbol at all? With the circle and the line through the middle?
No.
No? Okay, I didn't think so. I may get carried away, and I realize this, but this is actually the Greek letter theta, which is, if you look that up, and what does that symbolize? It actually symbolizes the divine. So I always think, I love these sort of coincidences. Those are just really cool to me. I'm like, no way. But so like when I came to this, because God's an artist, right? And everything that we are doing when it comes to composition, when it comes to understanding color, when it comes to understanding anything about art, we're always discovering. We never come up with it ourselves. Humans have not invented anything that has to do with art. I truly believe that. We have simply discovered it, and we're getting closer and closer and closer over time. Through history, I think we've come closer and closer to understanding God's design, even though I believe we had no idea we were doing that. That was the Holy Spirit working behind. So that's my opinion. Okay, so let's just flip that over. We're going to look at color. And there is actually also a bit of a spectrum with color as well here. Okay, you can follow along with this. I apologize for those of you who totally understand the color wheel and get the color wheel and are like, oh, seriously, I did my first color wheel when I was in kindergarten. I've done 200 since. And yet we just really need it. Okay. Let me grab this back again. I don't know if this will come out, but another cool thing I've discovered about color is in the color wheel is we can actually, is this sort of division. How did that go? Yeah, sort of dividing it like this. Anyway, so as I mentioned, I am going to race through the basics because I'm going off the assumption that you guys know this already and that I'm boring you with it. But please, if I am actually going too fast, stop me, okay? All right. So the colors are arranged around the wheel, and we probably already know, you guys all know about the 3 primary colors, and everything is made up of those. Now, this is one thing I always find a bit odd, is that people seem to just sort of randomly place them anywhere on the wheel, like they just seem to sort of turn the wheel anyway. I always put yellow on the top. Always. Even though I see online so many different times red is at the top here. And there's a reason why I put yellow at the top. Anyway, so yellow's at the top. Blue is on one side, and red is on the other side. And there's a couple of reasons for us. I don't know if that should be even. I don't think it is. I think I did a poor job of that. But anyway. Okay. So this is, and let me explain the reason for this is why I always put the yellow at the top is because of value. Because these colors are high value, meaning light. And this is low value, dark. Okay. Here, just a second. I have to pause a minute here. Okay, so this is why I always, to keep a better understanding, is I always put yellow at the top, and then the others down here, because these are the darker colors. They have the darker value, and then the colors up here naturally have a lighter value. And also it divides our warm and cool easier. Okay, so we actually find our cool colors over here on this side, and our warm is on this side. Okay. Now, the next thing to think about is always think about relationship. Okay. Colors relating to each other. How do they relate? And that's the one thing. And I think that's, to me, I think there's a lot more to be said with color in that, and how colors relate to each other, as opposed to just their symbolic. voice, you know, like there is symbolism certainly to colors. You know, red is always it's a color for passionate. Purple's the color for royalty. But that's really I think based more on culture and society, and just over the years what we have begun to associate with it, as opposed to how that shape actually feels. It's like this, or that color, sorry, how that color actually feels. Just like this shape, I don't think there's really anything about that shape that feels lovely. It's just become a symbol, and we now associate that with it because of our experience. We now associate that with love. Maybe there's something about it, but anyways, back to color. So how did these relate? Well, when they relate together equally, they together become green. Okay, and that's our first thing. And so these two, when these two meet, they produce green. Okay, you can think of them like those are the parents of green. When these two come together, they produce purple. Okay, so once again, the first, well, maybe not the first, but the relationship is what happens when colors mix. So when these colors all mix with each other, they produce a new color, and that's these colors here. Okay, and so, you know, and so we have these colors, and then once again, these now relate. Okay, so these have related to make this new one, and now how does, you know, I don't know, this may be a weird way to think about it, but here's the parents. So these are the parents, but now this one, how does this parent and this child relate with each other? Okay, well, when they together, they produce the what's called the tertiary or the intermediate color of this, you know, yellow green sort of color. Okay, so, and so on and so on. So so you can understand this, let me quick do this. But how does this child relate with this parent over here on this side? Is they look different. Okay, they look different when they're relating with this one, and this is what they produce. Okay, so yeah, maybe a way to think about this once again, because if you're thinking, you know, if you can come to a place of thinking about how they relate to each other, the more and more I find is when I think about art on the level of relationship, as opposed to just producing, production, you know, I am producing and making a painting. You work at a more intimate level with the work. Okay, it's like the difference between bread that's being made in a factory compared to like artisan bread. Okay, in a factory, I don't imagine there's anyone who's actually getting their fingers into the dough and kneading it all together. It's a very cold sort of process, all done by machines and that sort of thing. As opposed to artisan bread, which is, you know, the baker gets his fingers right in the dough and kneads it by hand, and it's just always way better, isn't it? I think so. Okay, so, you know, so here we have this sort of purple green. Okay, but anyway, so what I'm saying is, when you get to that level of thinking about your art on that level, on a much more intimate level, and thinking of how things relate to each other, I just believe in the end you're going to make much better art. Okay, so once again, now, okay, so these are these are the parents. There's the child. How is this child relating to this parent? Okay, and if you think about even as children, with each parent, like, you know, if I think of my boys, the conversations that I have with them and what goes on is very different than when my boys talk with Becky. and it produces something very different, okay? So this ends up looking quite different than when this child talks to this parent here. We're going to get something different, okay? And so when you let your imagination go to that place of thinking about conversations or songs, what are these guys saying? What are they talking about? What's the theme? What's the style? What does the conversation sound like? Is it loud? You know, is it loud? Is there laughter? Is it more somber? Then you will take those languages in those conversations into your painting, and those conversations will come out. Again, I get it. It's all very poetic, and I don't know any other way to describe it. So, oops, I forgot to change the view here. Let me change back to the view so we can see it larger there for the camera. Okay, so these are our main colors. And so if we look at this, we can see our light and our dark, okay? You know, these are lighter. If you just look at this, if I were to actually take my camera and switch it over to grayscale, you would see that these are all the lighter grays, and as they each come down the side, they're getting darker, 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 till, you know, depending if I was actually working on this, pressing, you know, harder, you know, this to this is very subtle changes, very, you know, okay. So this is why I always like to think about my yellows at the top, because this helps me, for one thing, when I'm painting highlights and shadows. Okay, my highlights are going to be a light value, my shadows are going to be a dark. So my brain, my hand, not even my brain, my hand just automatically grabs for the, you know, for these paint colors. Okay, and then when when I'm working with the shadows, I just grab for these colors here. Okay, and you know, and then there's mixing happening. So that's our first sort of thing, is how do our colors relate to each other, who are near them, and what do they talk about. And so you sort of grab, you think about, you know, what are you trying to talk about? What are you trying to say with your painting? And so you think about, this is what I'm trying to say. These are the colors that will say that best, because that's the conversation that they normally have. Okay, and I'm going to work, so then I'm going to work in that area of color. Sometimes we need an opposite color to make that stand out, to highlight that. Okay, what's a way to sort of describe that if I were to think of you know, a conversation? You know, how something, you know, something loud really only stands out. It doesn't stand out when everything else around it is loud. When there's you know, something quiet, that's what makes it stand out. So we always need the opposite. We don't understand light except for darkness. Okay, so if you're doing a painting and you want it to feel very light, if you only use these colors, that may be fine, but it may not actually feel light until you have just a few of these in there. Okay, and that's why this is what we call the complementary. So we've looked at how do colors relate to the colors near them, and the next thing we look at is how, oh, well, actually, and then categorize them, the different sort of conversations they're having is, so I already said there's warm and cool. So it sort of divides, like right here, right up somewhere along this line is our cool side and our warm side. Okay, so again, so that's, yeah. So I've talked about the conversations. I figured I should probably talk about warm and cool first before I go into complementary. So we have warm and cool. So you think about, once again, what's the feeling of what you're trying to express? Is it feel warm? Is it a warm, sort of warm and, warm fuzzies, right? We know that term, at least that we use it in English. I don't know if that's also used in other languages. Or, we might say, that person gave me the cold shoulder. So that has color, that colors speak that, if you're trying to express that sort of thing. We would go to our cool colors. So that's the other thing we want to think about, expressing those that way. And then once again, even if you're really trying to create this really sense of just warmth, comfort, okay, let me use that for an example. If really what you're trying to get across in your painting, your story you're telling in your painting, whether it's an illustration of a story, whether it's just some sort of fine art piece, whether even if it's a logo for a business, if you really want, let's say you're doing a logo for a coffee shop, or let's go back to breakfast. What if we do that? What if you're trying to paint breakfast, and what you are trying to say is, for example, a kingdom breakfast is a breakfast which is still at rest. We wake up in the morning, because we know our world, where breakfast has gone to for most parts of the world, is this rush sort of thing that you have to quick, we now have these breakfast bars, comes in a package, quick, rip it out, because we're in a hurry. And the whole idea of rest no longer goes along with breakfast anymore. So that's where I'm saying, let's say you might do a painting about breakfast from a kingdom point of view. So how do you want to do it? Do you want to, what is breakfast like to you? Is it warm and cozy? You just get up, you're so wrapped up in a blanket, I don't know. But you're trying to create this warm feeling. So you're going to work primarily on this warm side, but you'll really make it stand out if you have a little bit of the other side, which is the complementary. So we have what are called our complementary colors, okay, which is opposites. Okay, these work together. If they're not treated properly, they will argue with each other, okay, and they will cause issues in your art, which I can't help but make a comment on life. We do that. We come upon, we divide things. We call them opposite. I'm starting, we say the, yeah, we have so many, we have socialism and capitalism. That's definitely going on right now in our world, the Republic, especially in America, right? Republican and Democrat. We say they're opposites of each other. I don't want to get political here, but all I'm going to say is I think we'd get a lot more unity if we began to think of that person is not my opposite. They're not opposite to me. They're actually complementary to me. They complement me if I let them. We would complement each other a lot more, and we'd have a way more unity in our world if we looked at each other as complementary and not opposites. So think about these colors as complementary, okay? They complement each other. So when you're working with one color, it can be wonderful to bring its opposite in there to help it, okay? There's two ways that it can help. And once again, back to music, by either coming together and mixing together, does one thing, or standing side by side, okay? So think about the song, the choir, or sorry, the notes on a piano. You either play the two notes at the exact same time, or you play one after the other, and it will say something different. So side by side, they will brighten each other up, okay? Yellow, for instance, if you think about this, here is yellow on white. Now, but if I take yellow again, so actually let me do this. So I'm going to put yellow over here, and it's going to be standing by its friend, which is orange. His friend is somewhat like him, and they're standing side by side. Now I'm going to put them by purple. This, I don't know if this is going to show up on my camera as well. You guys are only seeing it over the camera. So it might be hard to see, maybe it doesn't show. This yellow is going to appear brighter. It becomes more yellow when it's next to its opposite, okay? Yeah, I'm just looking at the camera and it's maybe not quite as opposite. And it's very subtle. It's very subtle, but it will help when you bring its opposite color near it somehow, however you do it. It complements it and it accents it and it accentuates it, makes it stand out even more. Okay. Just like it. So in life, we actually need to become more of who we are. We need to get around people who are different than us and who are opposite to us. And if we let them, okay. But if we're not careful, this can turn into mud and it looks awful and it looks gray and it can turn into chaos as well. If we're not in painting. You've often seen these sort of muddy paintings, or you've experienced it yourself, where you're mixing a color and it just keeps going to this sort of pukey, muddy brown, and it's yeah, they're not working well together. Okay. So this is, for example, why I think the most beautiful, well, in sunsets always look so beautiful, because they're typically blue and orange. Blue and orange are opposites of each other. Okay. So one way is, so once again, if you're painting somewhere in there and you've got these, let's say, yellow flowers that you're painting, and you really want to make it stand out, see if you can find a way to get some purple in there. You've got these yellow flowers, get some purple shadows around it, get some shadows and get some purple. The purple's cool, the purple's dark, the purple's opposite. Okay. If you're painting orange flowers, try to get some blue around it. Okay. Get some blue in the shadows of the leaves. Okay. And it matters which blue, that's where it really gets, you got to practice and you got to play. It doesn't work great in your very first try, because it may have been the wrong blue, and some blues are just the wrong blue for that situation. Okay. Some relationships don't work in certain situations, and in painting, again, like life, you can compare anything in art to life. And if we just I think if we looked at life as a work of art, we'd do so much better at it. Anyway, okay, so opposites. I can do this with anything. I always think if you buy strawberries and tomatoes, so often you'll see them put in baskets which are green, okay? Because they are going to make those tomatoes and those or those strawberries or whatever simply look brighter, okay? So there's just another example. So putting colors side by side. Mixing is actually also, we think about its opposites. So I have my color wheel here. I'm going to make another ring here. So I'm going to make 2 rings. Okay. These, if you want to know any terms, these are what we call our hue, or the hues. These are the pure colors. Okay. This is still classified as a pure color, even though it is mixed. We call these our primaries. So primary hues, secondary hues, and intermediate hues. Okay. You'll notice, by the way, I shouldn't point out, oh, there's always discussion, is black and white actually a color? Yes or no? It is, as far as you can buy black paint and white paint. So in a sense, yes, they are colors, but no, they're not, in the fact that they are not on the color wheel, okay? Yeah, you're not gonna find black or white on the color wheel. If we're talking about, oh, understand when it comes to color, they're different between light and pigment. We're not gonna get into the science of it and how they work. They actually work opposite. And I'm sure there's all sorts of things spiritually we can explore in that. But we're not going to get into that. So we have our pure hues around here. The other color that is not on the wheel is brown. Okay. Brown is not all on here. Where in the world does brown go? Brown is actually achieved by when your opposites come together. Okay. If everyone comes to the middle and gathers at the middle and begins to mix and mingle, we get a sort of brownish, it can be sort of a brownish grayish sort of color. I'll just show you. So if I start, just everyone, okay, everyone come to the center, everyone mix and mingle, everyone act alike, everyone be the same. It turns into a sort of color which is not always attractive. I say not always because sometimes it is necessary, but if we only had this, it would be awful. And this is the problem with our world once again, where the world thinks that the answer to peace is to everyone become alike, you know, and that's why they're trying to, that's why, you know, that's the enemy's scheme of getting rid of the king. You know, he battles against the kingdom by simply lying about what it's supposed to look like or presenting a different kingdom, you know. So he is definitely trying to present harmony, but he's saying this is how it happens. You know, and so many people are buying into this, but I need to stop getting political again. So, but we mix these all, try and get them as even as possible. And how do we know if they're even? Is it starting to lean to one side or the other? So I'm just, again, mixing all these colors. By the way, I'm working with colored pencils. These are soft colored pencils, and I work with them very lightly. So I blur my eyes. How is this looking? So this is starting to look, yeah, definitely very grayish sort of color. Okay, so it's taken on this, and if I keep going, it's going to get darker and darker and darker and darker and darker, and eventually it's going to come really close to black. But that's going to matter on, you know, which colors I put most in there. But it is sort of this kind of, you can see what I mean by this sort of pukey sort of color. Okay, but we call that neutral. I'm going to write it over here, I guess. I'm going to write it in the middle. This is neutral. Everything's been neutralized, and you know, you can make all sorts of great analogies out of that. Okay, not bad, but it has its place, and it cannot, you can't do this to everything of your painting. You know, if everything in your painting had this, it would feel heavy. So that's why it's also necessary to use it, because sometimes we have to express heaviness, and we have to express yuck. Well, this is one way to do it, is to just start bringing everything together on your palette and on your painting. And if you just are in a yucky place or whatever, and you just need to get that yuck out of you, here's one way to do it. Grab those bright colors and just go for it. Okay, because look at that. Okay, these are nice, bright, pretty colors. Okay, and this is what happened. Okay, so The other area we call the semi-neutral or semi-neutral. And this is the area where most of your painting takes place or should take place and will end up taking place is in this area, not out here so much. Okay, so we need to use a little bit. Okay, I take that back. Not always. That's not that I can't. That's not true. In observational painting, let me say that, when you're just simply copying what you see in nature, when we look around, just because of the way light plays, it ends up in this area. So let me show you once again. Now the other, so we're going to work with complementaries again. And I'm going to take these two colors. So these opposites, my orange and my blue. And now if I mix them together, I'll get this completely, because this is, because here's blue. Orange is simply the child of these two parents. And these three together produced everyone here. So using two opposite colors, understand this, is the exact same thing as using every color. Because every single color on the color wheel is contained in these two colors. Okay? You might think green's not in there. I don't see green looking in there at all. Actually, green is, because there's yellow present in here and there's blue. And when they come together, they produce green. So understand that. Complementary colors contain every single color out there. And these are our complementary pairs. So they have a very unique, okay, so once again, that unique relationship. Okay, very unique. So there they are. So we've already seen what happens when they're side by side. Okay, they brighten each other up. And who knows, maybe it has something to do with that. There's all sorts of stuff that God knows about color that we certainly don't. It could be that that's why the yellow stands out, because everyone else is there with them. Okay, that's wild. This is actually every other color on the color wheel. Huh. Anyway, okay, because there's, well, no, not just that. Together, that relationship, that's what it is. That relationship is every single color. Okay, so let's take these two. Sorry, I get carried away with this. I absolutely, I love color. Okay, I'm going to make these two, and how do we get them to work together to not just create this? Well, simply in the amount that we let each one speak. Okay, sometimes we need to let orange speak more in the conversation, and blue, we let blue have her voice, but not too much. She's only allowed to say just a little bit, because we actually want this color to still feel warm, but we need it. Okay, see, Josh, that was my son leaving. But we needed to speak a little louder, or whatever. It needs to get darker and duller. Okay, semi-neutral is simply our colors which are darker and duller. Okay, exact same two colors. So when orange gets a louder voice and blue has to kind of quiet down and only get to say a little bit, this is what we get. On the other side, if we let blue speak first, and we let blue say more than the other one, this is what we get. Okay, so this time orange gets to talk a little bit, but not much. This is a bit of a yellow orange, I think. This is going to go a little green, I think. Yeah, it's going actually a little bit green. That means there's actually a bit too much yellow in my orange there. Maybe I grabbed the wrong orange. I think I need a different orange, actually. I think this is the orange I need. But let's blue speak. Two very different voices, right? Let me switch around. Two very different voices are said by the same two colors conversing with each other, okay, or singing with each other. So they're both singing each other, depending on who gets to sing a little louder and who's the backup. But that's another way to say it. This is our main singer, and the blue backs up this one. We get something that's warm but darker and duller, and then the other way. And then we can even do that even more. If we let orange say a little bit more or sing a little bit louder, just a little bit. Notice their song is warming up a little bit more, okay, but it's still not quite here yet. Not quite there. On this side, let me do one more over here. Once again, where we're gonna let orange sing, still louder than blue, but not so much. We're gonna let blue into there a little bit more. So now I have to look really closely. Now these are starting to look a little bit more alike. And they look a lot more alike, but they're still, you can still see the difference there. Okay, so there's, if I bring it a little bit closer, but much similar, okay? So the amount that we let each color into the conversation is all changing what is happening. And now when you take this color and it stands against this one and they stand next to each other, it will also help this stand out more because it's now darker. Okay, sorry, darker. It's darker and duller. So it will also help make this one appear a little bit brighter and a little bit lighter, okay? So this is really what we want to be doing, especially also when we're creating highlights and shadows. So if we want to create a painting that just has so much sense of light, and that's powerful. The play of light. I mean, just, I don't know if you can see behind me the sun coming out. We all know how much we are affected. Human beings are so affected by light. Cloudy days or sunny days, and we can use that in our paintings. And what we are saying, what we are expressing in our paintings is creating a sense of light. And what is that light doing? Is it warm light? Is it cool light? Is it bright light? Is it dull light? What's the atmosphere? We do that so much with color, okay? Let me do one more quickly because I want you to see how these are, again, very different inside here. So I'm going to do it once more with red, and then red, and then on this side, oops, that's supposed to be heading across to there. Green, and then green. Okay, so on this side, green, once again, just a little bit. Green hardly gets to say anything. Or green gets to say a little bit more. And you can see our colors are getting more towards brown. Okay, so you can see, so once again, comparing this to, you can just see that's a duller red, right? You can, okay. And now this one, but let's get a little green. Let's green, add a little more volume there. A little more yet. Okay, and on this side, red gets to say just barely a little bit, not much. Red gets to say a little bit more. But green has to lend her voice once again. And this is, by the way, in painting, this is why artists layer in paintings, why you spend so much time layering and putting colors over top of colors. It's a beautiful technique which allows the other color to have a voice. And layering as a way of blending, as opposed to just mixing everything together, where it's almost like each color loses its individuality if you blend too much. I'm not a huge fan of blending color together into making brand new colors. Now, I have done it, and sometimes it's necessary. It's just not the art that I'm attracted to as much. Okay, so I love it where there gets to be a little bit of, of its own color in there. So if we now just focus on these 4 colors here, you can see these are some neutral, almost like brownish colors. And this is where brown is. Brown is here on the wheel. Okay. When I would teach, well, even in my classroom all the time, I never put out brown paint. In fact, I don't even put out green paint. Well, no, I might put out one. No, depends what I'm doing. Depends what I'm doing. But if I'm doing a landscape, I don't put out green. They have to make their own greens, okay? Because we get a lovely variety of greens. One of the exercises I've done, and it would be a cool exercise, maybe we could even do this with you guys sometime if you wanted to, is where you create 20 different greens without using any green paint at all, okay? Create 20 brown paint, colors of brown, and without using any brown paint. And it opens up a whole new world to you, okay? You can do, yeah, it only really seems to work with those 2 for some reason. I don't know. Well, you can create a whole bunch of oranges. It's just a little more difficult. And I just don't think it's necessary with oranges. Obviously, there's different yellows, but anyway, I don't need to get into that. Okay. But just learning how to create all these different sort of browns. Okay. Also, the other color I never put out is black. If we're doing like a landscape type painting or an observational painting, even if we're painting a still life, I don't let them use black, okay? Because there is a style where you do that, glazing, a Renaissance type style, but just I am more of an impressionist myself, so I don't want to tell you that black is wrong. It's just that I have grown to love and appreciate what the Impressionists did with color, because they just broke down the barriers. They broke out of the box and just opened up a whole new world and a whole new understanding and how to work with color. So, okay. So, wow, that's been over an hour. I could finish this out with these 2 and with these 2, but I really don't think it's necessary. But once again, I want you to be able to see how in color we have this. It's circular. It's this way. It's a wheel, so it mixes round, and then it also mixes across like a spectrum. So both of those are visible in there. And it's just, it's divided. I always think that there's also other expressions, I guess, what are other expressions that I can bring out when you're thinking of color? So we can divide it like this. So if we divide the wheel like this with an X going through, we've divided into the 4 directions as well. At the top, you can also look at this. We have north, south, east, and west over here. Okay, and I forget where I was going with that. Totally forget. Anyways, I won't go there. No, sorry. What I was more thinking of is seasons. That's what it was. Is the seasons. The colors also fit with the seasons. Okay, with spring at the top, and if you think about it, new buds and new flowers, new leaves, things are often in this area. Okay. We have spring and then summer, the warm summer this is the warmest part of the wheel, I think. Summer, okay, these are warmer colors. So you can think about this also in your expressions, in your paintings. Fall is down here. This is where things are cooler, but they're still warm, okay? And again, don't think of these lines, think of them as very blurry, right? But fall, it's getting cooler. The temperature is getting cooler now. It's passing out of here. And then of course, winter over on this side, okay? So even with those types of paintings, if you can, if you're painting a spring sort of painting, think about, consider having these colors dominate it. Not that you're only allowed to work with those, but they can dominate. Okay. And then summer and this sort of thing. And this helps. This brings into the color schemes. Okay. Limit yourself with color. Don't always necessarily use every color. It's great to limit, to really focus your expression, to bring an emphasis to your piece. And I've gone over most of these. There's so many different color schemes. One main one is we call monochromatic, where we purposefully just work with one color and then we vary that one color there. So if we decide orange, we're going to do a monochromatic orange painting. We're going to work just in this realm where this will dominate. This will dominate. We can go this far, this maybe a little bit of this, but mostly it's going to be very dominated by one color. If we push it out a little bit further, the fancy word is analogous colors. Those are near each other. So we just simply expand out a little bit further. And now we're going to work sort of in this realm here. All the colors that are close to each other. So we limit ourselves to just those. And then very similar to that is, well, which, we might say, well, I'm only going to use the warm analogous colors, or I'm only going to use the cool analogous colors. Okay. And then a very, very big one that is, of course, complementary. Complementary colors, where we really work with opposites. Okay. So we just really have a focus of, let's say, a red green sort of thing, and or we're really going to work with yellows and purples and violets. Okay. We're just really going to focus on those, and we're just going to work on that spectrum. Okay. Again, the idea of working a color scheme is not to limit yourself, but to focus yourself. Okay. The color scheme is made for you. You're not made for the color scheme. So it doesn't mean you cannot step outside of that if it is needed and if it helps your expression, but limiting yourself to that is good. We also have, often with that also, there's a little more advanced, a split complementary. And I think this maybe came about where some people simply didn't like the complementary. So this is where you'll take yellow, and then you'll work with just the yellow and then the ones on the side of it. Okay, so where we go across. So I suppose, yeah, and then we can do a split complementary, or we can split it further, and then we have what is called a triadic. Okay, so we can divide these color schemes into two categories loosely. Once again, we avoid, here I am sticking things in boxes. So sometimes it's good just to understand. We'll stick it in a box with a blurry line, but these are ones, these will create little contrast. If we work with these color schemes, there's little contrast. That's going to be much more calm. That's going to, you know, so if you're a calm voice, or it's more of a quiet voice. Okay, if you're going to work, limit yourself to that. These here are going to be a lot of contrast, or more, maybe not necessarily a lot, but there's more contrast. Okay, so our pieces are going to get bold and loud and a little more exciting. Okay, and vibrant. Okay. So if you recall, last class, I had you guys express joy in two different ways. I said, see if you can express joy as very calm and quiet. And that was more just with drawing. I think, yeah, we didn't talk about color yet. We only worked with just the shape. Okay. And then I said, now make joy very exciting and vibrant and bold and loud, that type of joy. And well, this is how you would bring color into it. Okay. By focusing on opposite colors or focusing on similar colors. Okay, so we have similarity and diversity once again. Okay, always working with those, that balancing those sort of things. Okay. Yeah, and I think already, I think I talked enough about with light and dark. Okay, light and dark on a spectrum. In the same way, cool will make orange stand out, purple will make yellow stand out, so on. Dark will make light stand out, and light will make dark stand out. Okay.
Rick, excuse me, can you explain triadic again?
Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. So triadic is when we split further, when we actually end up, so we choose like a color, and then we go across the wheel, but we split further. And so we end up with, there are three opposite colors here. So it usually ends up being that we're going to limit ourselves to just the primary colors, yellow, red, and blue, or we're going to limit ourselves to the secondary colors, purple, orange, and green. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So again, if you sort of think about it in two sort of ways, your first thought, I think, would be, okay, what am I trying to create? Am I trying to create something very calm, or am I, okay, so, and we call this static. This is the term for it, static. And then this, the term, if you guys recall, is dynamic. Okay. So again, we're thinking about, what am I trying to express? How am I feeling, or what am I trying to create? Do I want to create something very calm and quiet and peaceful? Okay. Then I'm going to start, just sort of think, okay, so I'm going to start with one color, and I'm going to just stick with its neighbors, and I'll push out from there. Okay. So example, I'm going to create something very calm and warm again, and hopefully this is helping you guys understand, like, where do I start? Okay, when I don't know where to start. Okay, well, you have to start somewhere, so you have to just kind of but keep it simple. Start with one color. Okay, and so we decide, okay, I'm going to make it, I want it calm and peaceful. One color, keep it simple, one color. Okay, orange. That's what I'm feeling for some reason. I don't know why, it's just, it feels orange. Okay, and we start with orange, okay? And right away, to help it, we're gonna do, so we're gonna work with this, but now we can sort of like, can I push out? How far can I push out? Can I keep going and going? Do I stay only with orange? Okay. Or what do I think? Do I feel like I need to add more colors? But you only go that way. Okay. Don't start jumping all around the wheel. Don't start going everywhere. Just slowly work your way out. Okay. To, take your time, adding colors slowly, more and more. And you will remain in these areas here: monochromatic, analogous, either warm. Okay. And depending what color you chose, you're either going to be warm or cool. So you're gonna, and that will help your painting remain, and you'll keep, and you'll lock in and hold it together. You'll keep that focus, you'll keep that simplicity, by just, limiting yourself to just these warm colors okay. However, I want something bold and wild and loud, and just, it's so much excitement. I got to get it out. Once again, like, I don't know where to begin. I don't know what to do. Okay, start with one color. Okay, what's your one color? I'm feeling blue. Okay, no, okay, maybe purple. I'm feeling purple. Okay, it's just, I don't know, whatever, but I'm feeling purple. Okay, so now this time, instead of working this way with my neighbors, or with purple's neighbors, right away jump across the wheel this time. Now, okay, so that's the difference now. And you go boom all the way to its opposite, and you're going to be having some blue, some purple in there, and you're going to work with these as well, but you're going to think more, okay, that color there, and do I like this? Okay, get some in there. And then you can start to split off from its color, and this is what we go to, a split complementary, or we can expand it out further to the triadic. Okay, but that will, if you have that in mind, and this is where you're working from, it's going to be just that much more dynamic. Okay, thinking about, am I supposed to mix them together, or do I keep them side by side? Okay, and there's no formula. That's why it's called art. There's no formula that, it's not mathematics, and so you only come through all of that by experience, by just trying and experimenting and playing with it. If the thing turned into a muddy mess, you just simply remember, I mixed too many colors together, it's all going muddy. Okay, let it dry, paint over it again. Whatever, set it aside, grab another one. That's just a reality of it. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So once again, what I was hoping to get across is to work with color, thinking relationship. Okay. If you want to know about the symbolism of color, it's honestly, you can go online. You can find that, and that really becomes, again, that's a product of societies and cultures and worldviews. New Age. You go on some New Age website, they'll have all sorts of meanings behind color. Then go into a biblical website, they're going to have different sort of meanings of color. Okay. Go to a Hindu website, they're going to have different meanings of color. So that's all that's not as universal. That's more localized. Okay. This speaks to our heart. This speaks to, as humans. This doesn't speak to our culture so much. So that's why I prefer to teach about this side of color, and then the other stuff you can figure out. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. I'm sorry, I think I missed it. What's the analogous?
Sorry, analogous is your neighbors. Okay, so if I'm working with analogous, let's say I choose my first color yellow. If I'm going with analogous, I'm just going to limit it's really close, my close neighbors. Okay. So that's, you know, this one and this one, and then maybe I can push out a little bit more. And I don't like to use the word dominate. That's such a harsh term, but I can't express that enough that it's not about, it is about limiting, it's about reducing, simplifying it to primarily, there, maybe that's a better word. Let those colors be primary. So analogous, let's say, for instance, if my first color I felt was yellow, analogous means these are my primary colors. They're going to show up the most. They get more stage time. Okay, I'm comparing it to a play or a movie. They get more time on stage than the rest of these guys. These guys can come on stage if they're supposed to. They can make their appearance onto your canvas. Okay, they're allowed to, but you just don't give them too many lines to speak. They don't give as much time. They have to get back behind sooner. Again, hopefully you understand I speak through analogies and metaphors. Hopefully you can follow. Okay, but so this is analogous. Okay.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, and you can push it a little bit further, okay? And then there's two specific type analogous, which is your warm side analogous and your cool side analogous. So that's what I mean. But it's always about your neighbors, or you could say this is the colors, this is about, you know, yeah, we'll say neighbors. These are your neighbors. And these are the guys, this I probably shouldn't use because it's probably just more an American term. These are the ones who are across the tracks. Do you guys get that reference? They're they're on the other side of town. Okay. These are the ones you wouldn't normally associate with. Okay. But when you do, whoo, exciting things happen. Okay. These are happy, calm little backyard barbecue things. Okay, this is the football game with your rivalries, you know, and there's excitement and yelling and screaming, okay, because they're your opponents, okay. But when you get together, it's this awesome thing going on, and this is this, you know, happy little thing going on. So, and that's color, and that's how, yeah, like. In universities, you spend a whole semester on just color. Colors, you know, it's simply one of the elements of art. You know, the 7, 8, 9 elements. It's just happens to be one of them, but it's unique. It has all sorts of incredible properties, and it's just fascinating. You know, and I'm just so excited by it. I believe we're going to see new colors, and color is going to be such a big deal in the new paradise. Okay, I suppose kind of like was a science teacher was telling me it's like water here on Earth. Water is just one of the, you know, your 4 main elements, right? Was it water, air, fire, earth? And those are 4 main elements, but water has some amazing property to it. So. And I think it has something to do with, because this has to do with light, but so is that anyway. All right, starting to babble here I am. So let's go to the gallery view so I can see you guys. Hey, Rowena, you did get here. Yay, good.
Sorry, I got caught up in something.
Oh no, don't apologize. I'm just gonna, let me just. All right, we've got a few minutes left here, so I'm just going to end off with this, and then I'll invite anyone to show theirs if anyone wants to. I'll just quick show this. So again, the idea that I was working towards was to have at least 2 different practices of the same composition, which I ran out of time, didn't get a chance to complete a second one, so that's where I was working towards another one. So you know, doing the same sort of simple image, different ways, and limiting our colors in different sort of ways. So here, what I wanted to do was I wanted to get a sense of warmth. So, and just kind of warm, cozy. And so I stuck with my warm colors. That doesn't mean I only had warm, because you'll see there's a little bits of blue here and a little bit of bits of purple, which just help stand off and help bring out the warmth here. This blue purple shadow here helps brighten this up and makes this part stand out even more, but clearly dominated by the warm colors. And what I was actually going to do here was try and do something which is very complementary, and hopefully to see if I could make this one seem a lot more bold and exciting of what's going on, as opposed to this is just kind of a calm, quiet, you know, happy sort of piece. Okay, so that's, yeah, just the idea, but I didn't get as far as I'd hoped. But so I imagine some of you guys probably had the same sort of thing. You maybe didn't get more than one done. But just before we go and say goodbye, does anyone want to share? They're playing. Maybe that's another way we need to become more childlike, right? You know, a kid always invites someone else to play, and the answer is always yes. Well, not always, but so. And kids love to show off what they're playing.
Yeah, I do.
I'll share.
Yeah, Elizabeth, you want to share your playtime with us?
Yeah, I started to watercolor painting, so I just kind of finished them off with like details and stuff. But
Okay, here, hold on. You disappeared for some reason. Let me find you back. Oh, there you go. Okay, hold on. Place pin. There it is. Oh, nice. Very cool.
that was just playing around with the colors.
Uh-huh. Yeah, so you've got that oranges, yeah, so that orange, yellow, and then the use of the blue is really setting that off, and using the blue in your mountains as well is totally working. And getting your mountains as dark as you did brightens up so that the sky, that's really good. So you're thinking, you're obviously paying attention to the value as well as the color, which is good. I realized that at the end. I thought, oh shoot, I didn't talk about, I didn't stress value maybe enough, but clearly you got that. So really good. Yeah. And then yeah, keep it up. And then you have another one at the bottom there. Yeah, very good. So I think you can sort of see how your first piece is just more dramatic.
Yeah.
Right? There's a lot more drama in that first piece than in this one here. You know, now it's very very analogous, you know, blues and greens, everything feeling nice blue green. But I like that you actually used the red in the balloon there. So that really makes it pop, and you know, makes that stand out. And it just, and then it works well. Works well with the rest of it too. So well done. How about anyone else?
I can go.
Okay.
I'm not done. Let me just go back to where, whatever. This is mine. I don't know if you can see it.
I can if you get closer, I think. There we go. Lift it up just a smidge. There we go. Yeah, totally already saying something very different. Just with your change of background. It looks like you used the same, pretty much same colors on the flower itself, but I see you're changing the background.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
I don't know what I'm doing, but well, I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you're, again, so much in the end is like, you know, like Rowena was saying, it's experimenting and playing. You know, you can, you know, the understanding, so you take in what makes sense, and if it doesn't make sense, let go of it. Don't worry about it. Just keep having fun. You know?
No, it's making sense, but I'm like putting God in it too,
Of
so
course.
mine gets kind of all different colors.
Yeah. Well, exactly. And that's where, and that's where you, again, why I share this, but not in a way of saying these are the rules to follow. You definitely need to follow what you believe and what you feel God telling you in your heart. And, and you're blessed with that really close, special relationship where he tells you, this color, this animal, that one.
Yeah.
And then
He
he adds
doesn't do
sparkles.
shading.
Yeah,
It's kind of interesting.
that's cool, And so this would only kind of help you, I think, probably maybe come like, oh, I see why that works. I see why God told me that color. I like that color, that sort of thing, as opposed to, oh, I think
Apparently it does already, but what is interesting, I don't get color, but yet God gives me the color and I play with it already.
Yep.
So this helps a lot.
Good.
Because I get it now.
Yeah.
But I guess I did get it before. I didn't realize it.
Yeah. Well, kind of like the painting Rowena shared with us about, she's like, it works, but I don't know why. But it worked already before she understood why.
Yeah.
It's like our car work, the engine in our car works whether we understand why or not, we don't always need to understand.
And when it gets cold out, it doesn't always work.
I know. Yeah. We've had some serious cold weather here this past week. So.
We've been having like below zero. I can't even go outside with the boys and build an animal.
Yeah.
So it's that cold. But
yeah. I think we're supposed to get some warm though. By next week, it's supposed to warm up here. So, and I was Galaxy Test 10. That's Heidi Marie. I always forget that, but I see you there. So good. Hi. Are you going to share with us? Oh, that's it. You're muted.
Yeah. Okay, so I started this prophetic drawing for a friend of mine in Germany probably 3 weeks ago. And I just left it because I tend to do the monochromatic and it's like, oh, and then I get way too detailed. But just you talking gave me the courage to go back and go, all right, let's do the layers. And so then the process becomes long. Okay. And you get hung up on the time, but it's not about the time because in that layering comes the depth. Mm-hmm. So it's a illustration of her in the storm with the crown over the umbrella, just a backdrop, and the coat is like the fire. Okay. But it was looking two-dimensional, as it were, just using red and orange. So what you said, I added now blue as the layer to give it more depth.
Nice.
So it was the third layer of adding blue to the shading that allowed it to become more 3D. So that's what I was playing with right now.
Yeah. And it feels more like it's an appearance of light as well. Yeah. By bringing that in there, adding that to it. So that's cool. And just a little comment about time. If you make your time doing art of time spent with God, then you'd want it to last longer.
You're right. Because I thought, okay, now I'm adding a layer of blue. And then what will happen is after I add the blue, I probably will add pencil and do texture and shading. And so the coat alone could take me a long time because then I just start playing with the details. And it's a good point about time. I think this is going to take me forever. And I didn't even do it on the best sketch paper.
Oh my. Oh my.
Good. But it's a good point.
Yeah. Okay, I have to ask you. There's either something, can I ask you a question here, which has nothing to do with your art piece, but you either have a massive ruler in your room there, or there's something funny happening with perspective.
Oh, no, here, I'll show you. That is a massive ruler. Do you see it?
That's awesome. That's
And then
so good.
here is my massive apple, my teacher apple, my massive pencil.
Oh my goodness, that's so
It's
funny.
actually a real pencil.
That's hilarious.
So there we go. Yeah, this is a custom-made ruler that you're actually supposed to hang it on the wall about 6 inches from the bottom, and then you can measure your
Okay,
kids'
gotcha,
actual or height of people.
gotcha. Too funny.
Yes.
All right, thank you, Heidi Marie. Anyone else? Oh, Uta, very good. Oh yeah, there. Oh, nice. There we go. Totally create. Yeah, exact same picture, says something very different. Very good. Yeah, I mean, it creates a different atmosphere. It creates a different expression. We're saying, yeah, it's like yeah, and it works with all of those things. So sometimes we think, oh, all it's going to do is make it seem like a different time of day, which it does, as we can tell. One's evening and one's the middle of the day, but it will say more than that as well. So. All right, like I said, we're about 10 minutes past. One last time, going once, going twice. Let's see, Monique or Rebecca or Rowena, if you want to share, don't have to. Otherwise, we will wish you well till next week. And because I have a few more minutes. Oh, there's Monique. You're unmuting yourself.
I didn't do anything special, so I have nothing to.
Were you two
Just
talking
thinking
during
about-
class time?
Sorry?
I said, were
Yeah.
you two talking the whole time and passing notes back and forth during class?
Good students, good students.
That's fine. I'm
Okay.
just kidding. So,
So saying goodbye to everybody.
all right. Yeah.
Have a good day.
Let me shut us off.